Hello, howdy, sup, alright mate, aloha, g'day! This is Travel Tuesdays for foodie fans. Bryce Morrison is your host and I'm Carla, your colorful commentator. However you greet your friends, we're excited you're here for the journey as we take you across these United States and around the world to find the very best in food and wine. Join us every Tuesday as we interview foodie travelers, award-winning bartenders, restaurateurs, and more to find out their go-to bars and restaurants and how to find them. Enjoy the show!
Hello, foodie fans. This is Bryce Morrison. Carla Rhodes is here as well. She'll come on in a little bit. She's going to give you all kinds of colorful commentary this evening. And we may even have a little cameo by Tiny Dog Sam. But really, tonight is all about our guest. And that guest is Carmen Prieto. I met Carmen through an event called 360, the 360 Exchange here in Orlando, Florida. And ever since we met her, we've been fascinated by her photos. She does all kinds of amazing photography, but what's really cool is a lot of it is food. So, you know me, I like food. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Carmen. Hi, Carmen.
How are you, Bryce?
I am fantastic. How about yourself?
Good. Hi, Carla, somewhere in the background.
Hi, Carmen.
Hey.
See, Carla is colorful. I'm kind of bland tonight. I'll have to fix that next time.
Much like his personality.
Wow. Colorful commentary. Yeah. So anyway, on that note, I got my Moscow Mule. I am actually drinking a Moscow Mule this time. What about yourself, Carmen?
I am going to be a lightweight tonight, and I am doing a peach Moscato, but it's really yummy.
There's nothing wrong with that. If it's tasty, enjoy it.
Oh, I am.
I love a peach Moscato.
Really yummy.
As I mentioned in my intro, I have enjoyed a lot of your photos.
Thanks. I like taking.
What got you into that? How did you start taking pictures?
My mom would say I've had a camera in my hand since I was about 3 years old. I've just always loved capturing moments, capturing things, locations, people. There isn't any one thing, but I just love, I see the world in pictures. So I'm always like, oh, that's a picture. Yeah.
Very cool. So do you have any formal training? I mean, you've got quite the eye, so.
I did not get formal training. I did take photography in high school. Didn't understand anything that they were talking about when shooting manual. No clue. So I did take great pictures, and I never knew. I didn't know what they meant by any of that manual stuff. And then I did a portfolio in college. I did take photography in college, black and white. And that was actually featured in the college. I did an entire portfolio on bridges. I've always had a fascination with bridges.
So you were featured?
I was at my college. My work hung in their gallery for a while.
So how about the food?
So food became like a thing once I started appreciating different kinds of food, like not being so like hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff. And I really started appreciating the way things were plated and the look of it. And I can honestly say that a lot of that came from Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah, I should have pointed out the ears earlier.
Oh, it's cool.
What do you mean it came from Disney? How so?
Disney always takes such care in how they plate their food. I will say I did a very brief time at Applebee's, and I did not know that plating food was so important until I worked there. But their food isn't as pretty to me.
Of course.
So, but Disney, basically, like the festivals and such, we'll go with that. The amount of detail that is paid into how they plate those itty bitty little plates that they give you at festivals is just crazy. And I have to say my favorite is like their arts festival, because literally the food becomes a work of art. And I've always appreciated pretty food. So now I always like, when I meal prep and when I do those things, I pay a lot of attention to how I prep it the first time I make it. If I'm eating the same thing for a week, I don't care. But the first time I prep it, it always looks fantastic.
So it's interesting you say that. I'm curious how it is that the plating is what helped you to move on from hamburgers and hot dogs.
I think it's the same thing as when you receive a gift, how it's wrapped.
Okay.
To me, the delicateness of opening up a really nice thought out gift versus just being handed a card. Like when my grandmother used to make baby blankets, and the baby blankets themselves were a work of art. But I'd like to think that if she handed it to you in a Publix bag, you'd be like, oh, that's really nice. But she would take the care to take like Xerox paper, the box, and she would wrap it in beautiful baby paper. She would make her own ribbon on it. And to me, it increased the value of what was in the box in the way in which you received it. And for me, food is very much like that too. The best cooks in the world, the best chefs in the world, when they're doing this cooking contest, they'll tell you how you present that food to them is what makes it more valuable. That's
So
what
for you, that worked, right?
good. It absolutely did. I love pretty food. I always hope it tastes as good as it looks.
Right, right. But we do eat with our eyes.
We do.
That's one of the many senses that we utilize. And you're right. If it doesn't look appetizing, then we're not going to enjoy it.
That's completely true. I have literally thrown out perfectly good food because I didn't think it looked acceptable to take to some place.
Right.
And he usually comes along and helps me fix it. It's like, no, if you do this, it'll look good. And I'm like, no, we're throwing it out.
Or garnish with it or something.
Yeah, cheesecakes. She loves making cheesecakes.
Uh-huh.
And I swear to you, she made a cheesecake once. She was almost to the trash can. And I stopped her. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, it's ruined. I messed it up. And I helped her.
Cheesecake may be the exception. I will eat an ugly cheesecake.
Right. I helped her put a covering on it. I don't even remember what it was. It was some kind of berry compote or something like that, and made it pretty. And it was one of the best cheesecakes she has ever made.
I mean, cheesecake is one of those things, if you tell people what it is, they're probably going to get over themselves and just eat it. But
Right. Yeah.
Probably.
If you look at her gallery of cheesecakes, some of them are really pretty.
Yeah.
And that does make a difference.
I actually just today, so for like, I don't know, like 5 years, I got into like how I was plating my food for this particular cookbook weight loss program called Fit Girls. And today, go figure, I'm going to come on this show tonight. And today, they finally featured one of my food pictures.
Oh, no.
I was
Okay,
like,
what is it?
It was basically I made homemade turkey sausage, and then it was on top of a fried egg over fresh arugula that was lemon zested with olive oil on a piece of toast. And it was just the way I stacked it and plated it, of course, but it looked, and avocado, like very thin cut avocado slices, like pretty on the egg. And they were on my page like for 2 days, like looking at all of my food pictures and commenting on different ones. And then today I saw that they posted one. I was like, finally.
It sounds amazing, but it also sounds very challenging to plate.
Oh, it's not. It's really, you just put the piece of toast down, you take the arugula with the olive oil and the lemon, and you mix it in a separate bowl. Then you just put it on top of the toast. Their original design, like their original food plating picture, had the egg on top of the sausage, but balance wise, that didn't work for me. So I put the sausage on top of the egg. Anyway, it was delicious. I mean, it was their recipe, and I just did the plating a little bit different. And then I took a tiny bit of cilantro and put it on the very top. Just to
I love cilantro.
Me too.
I'm
Not everyone does, but I do love it.
No, yeah, cilantro is funny because apparently people taste soap.
Yes, it is scientifically proven, I guess, that either you love cilantro or it tastes like soap.
Right. Yeah. So, where are you? Are you originally from Orlando?
Nope. I was born in Alabama. I was a military brat. I come from Spain and Cuba. And so I was born in Alabama, only lived there for a very short period of time. Then we lived in Germany for a couple of years. I do not speak German. But my brother was born there. And then my mom was pregnant with the youngest, my brother Lewis, and we moved back to the States. And I grew up in Miami. So I was in Miami from like the age of 4 on, and
Wow.
then moved to Orlando. This year will be 10 years.
So you've been all over. You said Disney really opened your eyes to food, but you've been all over the world and you never really appreciated the food before you.
Well, Disney, I've had a pass since I was like 13. So
Okay. So you did get to enjoy Germany and Spain and Cuba
well,
then?
I went back there later. I do not remember anything of Europe when I
Okay.
was there as a young girl. My parents pull pictures now though when I go to places that they had taken me to, and they're like, "Look, you were there as a baby," and I'm like, "That's great. I don't remember it." But I've been very, very blessed to have gone back to Europe several times and just recently Asia. So I've been lucky to be well traveled.
What you would call memorable home other than Orlando would be Miami then?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about Miami. Where's the place to go in Miami for great food?
So I would avoid South Beach at all costs because you're paying a lot of money. It is pretty food and it's probably tasty, but it's way out of budget. If you're going to go to a place in Miami that's on the beach and you want a little bit of all the flavors of all of the people that live in Miami, you go to a place called the Big Pink. It's right on the beach. It's been there forever. Their menu is like 30 pages and they cook Hispanic food, they cook Greek food, German food, like all different kinds of cuisine. But that's not where like I would say I grew up. Where if you want real Cuban food and you want the place that people in Miami all know, you can either go to Isla Canarias, which is on 137th and Coral Way, and you can get some amazing real Cuban food, or La Carreta, which is on Bird Road.
I was in sales at the time. A gentleman, one of my customers, was a police officer, but he had grown up in Miami.
Okay.
And he told me where to go.
Nice.
And he said, "Look, you can go to the tourist place in," Carla remembered, Little Havana. I can't remember the name of the tourist place, but it's the place that was in the Chef movie,
Hmm.
the one with all the Marvel's stars.
Hmm. Yep.
Um,
Oh, Versailles.
Versailles, yeah,
Mhm.
Versailles. He said, "Go to Versailles. It's an experience. You know, you've seen it in the movie, but
Right on the
really,
street of Las Palmas. Did you go to Las Palmas?
I think we did later. We went there another time. But where he told me to go was Hialeah.
Yeah, you need a passport to go to Hialeah. I love all my Hialeah people, don't get me wrong, but when my mom ended up in the hospital in Hialeah, the doctor couldn't tell my stepfather, who is as American as they come, in English what was wrong with her. So that's why I
So
say get you cute.
fortunately, I grew up in South Texas,
Okay.
and I did study a little bit of Spanish in high school, and I also studied Latin in college, which, it's the foundation for all the Romance languages. So I can pick up here and there, but I can read an entire article in Spanish, but I can't really communicate well in Spanish. But if
Mhm.
I look at a menu, I can figure out what to order. So,
Right.
I we actually literally, I had to point and, with my little bit of English, but yes, it is a different country, Spanish only. They do
Mhm.
not speak English.
No.
But man, the food was amazing and the prices.
Oh, you can't beat the price in Hialeah. You just
We
can't.
had we had breakfast there and it was so cheap. I
Mhm.
I think there were, what was it?
Chorizo and
Oh,
pita.
I we must have eaten for maybe $15, 4 of us,
Mhm.
for breakfast, and we still had leftover food.
Yeah. No, it's the food in Hialeah is fantastic. It was not as close to where I lived growing up because I grew up in West Kendall.
Okay.
So we had a little bit of a Mexican influence because Homestead was super close to us. We had a lot of Cubans for sure. But we had eclectic. We had a lot of like the real Mexican food, not Tex-Mex growing up in the Homestead area. And then we had like the real Cuban food because we lived close to, like I said, La Carreta and La Canarias. La Canarias was right next to my school, and since her daughter has opened 2 new restaurants, the names escape me because I've only been to each of them once. But she definitely inherited the family tradition because the food is phenomenal. But she's
Nice.
more of the fancier food, and she brought that to the West Kendall area. Amazing. A Moscow Mule to die for. But then she's also got like some of the best mojitos in Miami.
I've been down there a few times with Xavier, as a matter of fact, our guest from last week. Mojitos are challenging to find. Some are better than others, for sure.
Oh, yes. Yes. But for me, more than the drinks, the one thing I try in all Cuban restaurants to find out if it's a legit Cuban restaurant for me is ropa vieja. If you can't make ropa vieja, I'm not coming back.
Ropa?
Ropa vieja. It's
Yeah.
basically translate literally to old clothes, but it's shredded meat and a tomato sauce.
Okay.
And there's a trick to getting the sweetness just right. I've never made it. I will happily order it wherever I go. But it's like a pressure cooker kind of meat that you make, so super tender, just very stringy beef. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that is my go-to. I did find one place here in Orlando that makes it very well.
So, it's funny that we're having this conversation. I just went to a
You
grill
said
out.
yes.
What's that?
I'm like Gigi's like yes.
I went to a grill out just a couple of days ago, and one of the guys there grew up in Puerto Rico and South Florida, and he didn't know what brisket was, and I thought that was fascinating. He knew exactly what picanha was, which I make both. You mentioned earlier that there's a difference between Tex-Mex and Mexican food, and you're exactly right.
There is.
And having grown up in South Texas, brisket, that's the national food of Texas.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
but yeah, it's interesting how even small differences, small cultural differences can mean huge differences in food.
Oh yeah, like when you learn to eat Mexican food in like Homestead, where the Mexicans straight from Mexico are making it, like there's no comparison. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me some Taco Bell. I don't want to know how they make their food, but there is quite a difference between that and real Mexican food. That is not Mexican food. And I've done missions trips to Mexico where they're making the corn tortillas daily, and there is that's what they have in Homestead versus what you're getting.
I may have to keep
Chewy for
from ever inviting you back, having Taco Bell. You love Taco Bell? Come on.
Yes, because Bryce has never eaten Taco Bell. Last week before?
2 a.m., 3 a.m. after about
That's
5.
what okay.
Oh,
But
wait.
you grew up in Miami. That's what you eat at 2 o'clock in the morning when you come home from the clubs. It's the only thing open. Taco Bell sober is a different conversation, but
That's
Taco Bell
exactly
is
right.
very helpful at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, I just need to point out, I found out my mom is watching. I've never had any alcohol.
As your husband is holding a Moscow Mule glass. Sure.
My mom's from the Midwest. She doesn't know what that is. Mom, it's just soda.
Let's try this. Outside of your cultural background, where would you eat in Miami? Give me a great seafood place.
Oh,
Anything?
it's in the Keys. It's called the
Oh,
Fish
okay.
House.
The Fish House in the
Yeah.
Keys.
They do a baked lobster like ravioli, and then they do shredded Ritz crackers crumbled across the top of it, and it is perfection.
Yes.
But you have to open it up so that you have a tongue left when you're done because it is always so hot.
Wow.
It is. They make it fresh to order. It's not even on the menu, so that's how you know. That's how they know if you're like someone who's been there before, because you asked for the lobster ravioli in the dish. Oh my gosh, that is legit the best. And you can order anything off their menu, and it's amazing. There's also a place called El Parito. It's like one of the beaches down there, and there is a place that does the whole fish. It's like 45 minutes. You got to wait for that thing. So don't go starving, but go hungry. Order an appetizer because you may want to kill someone with how long it takes to get your food. But people will wait there for 3 hours because it is phenomenal.
Now you said these are in the Keys. Are they far down in the Keys, or
No,
how
like
far from Miami?
for Miami, about 30, 45 minutes.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna name a fish place in Miami when we had the Keys right there and got fresh caught fish. Like, there isn't going to be something better.
I may have to go back and rewatch this and take some notes myself. I've struggled with fish in the Orlando foodie scene. Maybe you have a tip for me. I don't know. For me,
Rick's Oysters,
where?
that's the best. Rick's
Rick?
Oysters. hmm That place here in Orlando, there is nothing like that even in Miami.
Okay.
It's been there forever. Lee and Rick's Oyster Bar. And
Okay.
they chuck the oysters right there at the bar for you. And you can have them any way you want. You can have them boiled, broiled, fried, raw, like whatever you want. I go for raw. But
Right.
if you need another way, Lee and Rick's, locally, the best.
I'll have to remember that. The only place that I have found that I really enjoyed, interestingly enough, is out at Disney. It's in the boardwalk and it's called the Flying Fish. Have you ever
They're
been
good.
there? Yeah.
hmm
And speaking earlier about plating, that's one of their they plate exceptionally well. It's beautiful food.
I care about the plating, so that would
Yeah.
make me happy. Lee and Rick's is not about the plating.
No, but
Lee and
that
Rick's
always
is about the
happens.
experience. There
The
are no
the
plates.
the atmosphere does make a difference, you know.
Yeah.
If you're in a dive bar and it's the right feel, it doesn't have to be plated well. It's just a part of the experience.
Right. I mean, I'll say that like when I travel domestically, I always ask the locals where to go. And they're
Yep.
not going to tell me the place that does candy sugar on their desserts. They're going to tell me the place that has good tasting food. If they plate pretty, that's great. But I don't know when the baby back ribs are like falling off the plate because they're so big and it looks delicious. Like, that's fine with me. you know?
Exactly. Yes. With you having done these recipes, obviously you're starting or you have been doing some
Oh, I
cooking yourself. What's that?
I will tell anyone who asks will laugh because people are like, "Do you like to cook?" And I was like, "No, my mother didn't buy me an easy bake oven when I was a kid, so it didn't start young."
Okay.
uh, it started when I had to cook for myself.
Okay.
First, it was like a major chore and like whatever. I don't like to cook big quantities of food. I'll say that.
Right.
I like to
Wow.
cook single servings.
That's funny because like generally speaking, most people will tell you, I don't know how to cook for one person or for two people.
Always look for recipes that are for single servings.
Interesting. Okay. So
And I just don't like leftovers for days and days.
yeah, but
When you live alone, you're
you're
the one who's
frugal.
going to eat them.
You're
I'm not
frugal enough
frugal.
not to
No,
throw it out.
no, I'm not frugal. I just don't want to eat the same things that long.
Yeah.
I will spend good money on good food for myself, or I like to buy like the nice big bell of mushrooms, things like that. But I also don't want to eat leftovers of the same thing for 4 days.
Yeah. So is there an area of food that you're curious about or that you've started learning or anything? Skills of any kind or, last week Xavier said something about cooking with a wok.
I just started this new cookbook, the one that they posted my picture from it today. Again, like cooking healthier because I come from a Cuban background, so put oil on it, do all these things to it, yada yada yada. So today I experimented with black bean brownies.
Oh, I've had those. I've had good ones and I've had bad ones.
They are in the middle. So I
Yeah.
looked up a couple other recipes. I feel like they could be a little bit sweeter, but not too much more. So I think I'll use maple syrup the next time instead of the honey. But other than that, I thought they were pretty fantastic and looking forward to eating one later. But I made a batch of those today. Just trying to find like slightly healthier ways of eating because at the beginning of this whole like house arrest, I was not eating well. So
Right. Yeah.
I switched gears completely and I started with juicing and now I'm like just making healthy meals.
Good.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Angie said agave nectar. That might be a good one.
To use in the brownies. Yeah, that probably
Mhm.
would help.
Yeah.
One thing Carla does that helps her brownies is she used, uses flaked sea salt. So, obviously sea salt already has less sodium than table
Mhm.
salt, but flaked sea salt has even less. You don't have to use much of it at all. And it really it makes the brownies pop.
This recipe I used today did not call for salt at all.
Gotcha.
So it was, because I think because it was already using the dark chocolate morsels,
Okay.
cocoa powder, coconut oil, but it was honey. And for me, brownie should be just slightly sweeter. And since you're already using, like, I use 60% dark chocolate, I was already losing some of the sweetness. So I feel like it needs to switch it. So I'm going to try the agave nectar.
Makes sense. So, is there obviously you weren't born with or you weren't gifted an easy bake oven when you were
No,
young.
if my mom is watching, I'm still bitter.
What everybody's failed at something. What's your biggest foodie disaster? All right, foodie fans, thanks for tuning in. Check us out next Tuesday for part 2 of this fantastic foodies interview.
Bryce, you jerk. We want to know the answer.
Well, great. Hit subscribe.
Fine, but you're sleeping on the couch.